All right, this morning. Hopefully we got all the technical things straight this morning. Good to see everybody. Finna get some cooler weather. I hope y'all ready for it this morning. Gonna get some rain, I think Tuesday, saying 80%. And then we got got Thanksgiving coming this week. Boy, what a wonderful time to be alive in the world, see all that God's doing, even with all the problems. You know, I've said before, when the darker it gets, it's going to be easier for people to see the true light. They're going to see the light in this hour that we're living in. So today, we're going to continue in the book of Samuel. It's been a lot of things happening, and going to be some things are going to come to pass today that we've been talking about. Sin brings about a lot of consequences in our lives and in our families' lives. And the only thing, once we've committed these sins, that we can do is plead the blood. And we know God, this is one thing David always knew. He knew that God was merciful. He knew God was just, but he trusted God. You see that later on. We will see when God gives David a choice of 3 judgments. If you know your Bible, you know what he chose. He chose to fall into the hands of the Lord and let God make it, because he knew he didn't have enough wisdom to make the choice on how his judgment ought to be. Right. So I'm thankful that God is a merciful God. If he wouldn't none of us make it. So I'm going to read the last verse of chapter 16. We're going to be in today 2 Samuel 17 and 18. I won't go back over all the things we've looked at in 1 and 2 Samuel. But David had the kingdom fully, and then now his son Absalom is trying to take the kingdom from him. This seems to be a consequence of David's sin. We know Amnon, David's son, he was killed. Absalom had him killed for raping his sister. And Absalom has made some choices. Now Absalom is trying to replace David as king, trying to replace his own father as king. So we're going to read the last verse in chapter 16, verse 23. And the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the counsel of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom. So David and Absalom listened to Ahithophel's counsel, because they felt like when they got counsel from Ahithophel, they were getting it from the Lord. That's what they thought. You remember back in this last week we talked about when David was leaving out of Jerusalem because Absalom had come in fixing to come in and try to take him out and him take over and be king. You remember what David prayed as he was leaving? He prayed that Ahithophel's counsel would what? Come to naught, basically. So he sent back his man. You remember his man's name? Let me see. Hushai. Hushai was David. Now remember this. Hushai was David's friend. Now get this before we go into this day. Ahithophel, it seemed, was very wise, but it don't seem that he was godly. This is another thing. Ahithophel was not with God's plan. We're going to see it clear today. It looked like he was. So what is this a picture of? Sometimes people will look like you, they're godly. They will look like they have the fruit of the Spirit. They'll look like they're walking with God. But that's why you better understand the parable of the sowers. Because everybody that looks godly, everybody that looks like a real Christian may not continue to follow God. They may fall away. Sometimes this is over many years. Sometimes it's short. Sometimes it's quick. Sometimes it's over a period of time. I mean, Judas, you look at him, nobody thought he was. We're going to see somebody today, his life, I'll just go ahead and say it, Ahithophel's life is like Judas's. That's what you're going to see. So we pick up in chapter 17. We see, though, the point I wanted to read, this last verse of chapter 16, is that both of these men trusted Ahithophel. chapter 17. Good morning. Moreover, chapter 17 of 2 Samuel, Ahithophel said unto Absalom, let me now choose out 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue after David this night. So now Absalom has come in to take David's place. Absalom has come in as king. But let's understand that Absalom is not the rightly king that God chose. Are we all together on that? This is something that man is doing. It's not of God. Even though God has allowed it. What you're going to see today is some things God will allow, sometimes for a short time or a long time, it might seem, but it ain't really God's will. Right. So he's counseling Absalom to go after David with 12,000 men this night. He wants to do it immediately. Verse 2, and I will come upon him while he is weary and weak-handed, because he knows he's on the run, and will make him afraid. You think you're going to make David afraid? And all the people that are with him shall flee, and I will smite the king only. Notice he didn't never say that Ahithophel that I know of was David's friend. Hushai was. Why would Ahithophel? This man's been giving counsel to King David for years, and now he wants him dead. Why is this? A coup. A coup is going on. But we're going to see it ain't a God. Verse 3, and I will bring back all the people unto thee. The man whom thou seekest is as if all returned, so all the people shall be in peace. Verse 4, but this is going to be a false peace if it happened. Verse 4, and the saying pleased Absalom well and all the elders of Israel. So what Ahithophel said, it pleased Absalom and it pleased all the leaders, the elders of Israel. Verse 5, then said Absalom, call now Hushai. Remember, this is who David sent back, said, I'm praying your counsel will confound Ahithophel's. That's why he sent him back. He didn't want to go back. But he was David's friend, so he did it. Then said Absalom, call now Hushai the Archite also, and let's hear likewise what he saith. Now, where's this coming from? The Bible says, apparently Absalom knew this, there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. There's safety in a multitude of counselors. And when Hushai was come, verse 6, to Absalom, Absalom spake unto him, saying, Ahithophel hath spoken after this manner, shall we do after his saying? If not, speak thou. So he's not trusting Ahithophel. Now I wonder why. Was this because of David's prayer? Probably. So he asked Hushai. Verse 7, and Hushai said unto Absalom, the counsel that Ahithophel hath given is not good at this time. So he didn't just say it wasn't good, he said it this time. That's pretty wise. Verse 8, for said Hushai, thou knowest thy father and his men, that they be mighty men. That's true. That they be chafed in their minds as a bear robbed of her whelps in the field. Well, David's just been run out of his house, run out of his kingdom. And thy father is a man of war and will not lodge with the people. Verse 9, behold, he is now in some pit or in some other place, and it will come to pass when some of them be overthrown at the first, that whosoever heareth it will say, there is a slaughter among the people that follow Absalom. Verse 10, and he also that is valiant, whose heart is as the heart of a lion, shall utterly melt. For all Israel knoweth that thy father is a mighty man, and they which be with him are valiant men. Now let's think back what Absalom did. For I believe it was 20 years he's stealing the hearts of the people. He was stealing the hearts of the people to do wickedness, to do evil, to go against God's will. Now think about this. God had let this go on for 20 years. He's trying to persuade all it. And this, if I'm not mistaken, this is not counting all the ills, the 2 years he was in exile, Absalom, after he killed or had his brother killed, Amnon. He was in exile for 2 years. Then he brought him back because of what Joab did, and he lives by David, but David did not see his face for another 3 years. David wasn't having nothing to do with him 5 years there. Then we go if I remember right, 20 more years, him trying to, sitting at the king's gate when people were going to come to see the king, he said, I'll hear your matter. You can't get justice here with David. That's what a lot of people is dissatisfied in our country today, because they're not getting justice, they think. Do you want justice? Most people don't really want justice. They want mercy. Right. They want justice for somebody else. Right. But if we got justice, what we have? If you get justice, you're going to get death. Because the wage of sin is death, right? Yep. Yeah, what most people have, we want justice, yeah. I know what you're saying. I've done it myself. But I want mercy. Yep. What I want. Verse 11. Therefore, listen to what Hushai is going to say now. He's heard what Ahithophel said. Verse 11. Therefore I counsel that all Israel be generally gathered unto thee, from Dan even to Beersheba. So he's saying, get all Israel to come to you, Absalom. So that sounded good to Absalom. As the sand that is by the sea for multitude, and that thou go to battle in thine own parts. He's saying, you're going to gather everybody to you that can go to war, and you're going to go with them. Verse 12. So shall we come upon him in some place where he shall be found, and we will light upon him as the dew falleth on the ground, and of him and of all the men that are with him there shall not be left so much as one. You know what Hushai's really doing though? Remember, he was David's friend. He's buying time. What he's doing. Instead of doing what Ahithophel wanted. Verse 13. Moreover, if he be gotten into a city, then shall all Israel bring ropes to that city, and we will draw it into the river, until there be not one small stone found there. He's saying if we get all Israel together and we all go, we'll take ropes, and anywhere he hides, we'll pull it down. So this is what Hushai is telling him. Verse 14. And Absalom and all the men of Israel said, the counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For the Lord, now get this right here, the Lord's in this, for the Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel. The Lord was in this. All this time, God was allowing all this stuff Absalom was doing was against the will of God, and God has let it go on. I'm saying probably for at least 25 years. See, justice don't always come swiftly. And that's where people get disappointed. They want to throw away everything. Some people do that about the church. Some people do it about civil government. They want to throw it all away because everything ain't like we think it ought to be when we think it ought to be. Right. That's a big error we can get into. And I've done it before. That's why we can't never get around that. Them that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. So it's that waiting. See, that's what happened to Saul, remember? The first thing he messed up on, he did not wait on the Lord. He intruded the priest's office. Why did he do it? He said he got fearful. He was worried that he wasn't going to be ready for war. Well, if you go to war without God, you ain't going to be ready. That's what he was doing. Oh, I'm helping you, God. God don't need our help. He needs our obedience. So it says, for the Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom. Notice who the evil's fitting to come on. Absalom's fitting to be judged. Verse 15, then said Hushai unto Zadok and to Abiathar the priest, thus and thus did Ahithophel counsel Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus have I counseled. So he's talking to the priest now. Verse 16, Now therefore send quickly and tell David. Remember what David had told him? Let's see, Zadok and Hushai had some children, and they was going to be bringing David news of what Absalom's plans were. So that's what's fixing to happen here. Now therefore send quickly and tell David, saying, lodge not this night in the plains of the wilderness, but speedily pass over, lest the king be swallowed up, and all the people that were with him. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed in Rogel. Now they were staying on the outside of the city, these two were, of these priest children, so they could go tell David what he needed to know, what was going on. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed in Rogel, for they might not be seen to come into the city. And a wench went and told him. Y'all know what a wench is? I had to do a little study on this. A wench is a female maidservant. A wench. This word is not used much today. A female maidservant. And the wench went and told them, and they went and told King David. So even though they didn't have internet, they didn't have a cell phone, they didn't have a newspaper. Now, I know y'all laughing about it. Well, that ain't what we call a wench, is it? I know y'all got y'all Mississippi slang. Y'all can tell me later. We don't want that to go all over the world, do we? But anyway, that's what, if you look it up, that's what it is. So they're doing this secretly to get David word, okay? But guess what's happened? A lot of times you do something in secret, it don't always stay in secret, do it. Look what happens in verse 18. So they did all this undercover to get David word. Nevertheless, a lad saw them and told Absalom. So Absalom's finding out what they're doing. But they went, both of them, away quickly and came to a man's house in Bahurim, which had a well in his court. So let's talk about a water well, cistern. Whether they went down. So they were so scared, they went down in the well. Look what happens now in verse 19. And the woman took and spread a covering over the well's mouth, and spread ground corn thereon, and the thing was not known. So she did a cover-up to protect them. And I believe this was the Lord's will. God's bringing his counsel of Ahithophel, just like David prayed, bring it to naught. Verse 20, and when Absalom's servants came to the woman of the house, they said, where is Ahimaaz and Jonathan? They're looking for these two just bringing this word to David. And the woman said unto them, they be gone over the brook of water. And when they had sought and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. So they didn't catch them. Verse 21, and it came to pass after they were departed that they came up out of the well and went and told King David and said unto David, arise and pass quickly over the water. For thus hath Ahithophel counseled against you. That's who his counsel was against. Now, if Ahithophel's counsel was against David, was David God's anointed? So guess who his counsel was really against? It's going to be his downfall. Even David is not going to be able to save him in this. What you fixing to see? David loves his son, but he ain't going to be able to save him. Verse 22, then David arose, and all the people that were with him, and they passed over Jordan by the morning light. There lacked not one of them that was not gone over Jordan. And when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass and arose and gat him home to his house, to his city, and put his household in order, and hanged himself, and died, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. So just because his counsel wasn't followed, he goes out and hangs himself. There's more to this though. You know what got in him? You got to ask yourself. He's a picture of Judas Iscariot. Why did he do it? Pride. That's why. Pride. What's pride do? Cometh before destruction. The haughty spirit before a fall. Okay, so he knew, see, he probably had enough wisdom to know God's will wasn't in Absalom. He knew David was going to come back and he was going to be executed. He knew. So he was just like Saul, fighting against the will of God. A lot of people today is kicking against the pricks. They fighting against God's will. And a lot of times they fighting against because it don't go. A lot of times it don't go like we want, even as believers. That's just the truth. A lot of this stuff David set in motion with his sin. Okay? And he can't change the course of what's happening in his life. God forgave David of the eternal consequence, but he didn't take away the temporal, the physical on earth. That's what we got. When we talking to people out there, ministering to people, trying to win people to Christ, do not make somebody think if they come to know the Lord, get saved, their sins forgiven, that God's taking all their problems away. You finna be telling a lie there. You don't know that, and I don't know that. He might take something. God ain't giving me consequences. I'd have got death myself. So God don't always give us the severe consequence that we deserve. Thank hallelujah for that. Amen. But that don't mean he takes them all away. I am still suffering consequences of my sins. And I've been saved 31 years. And I'm still dealing with consequences. That's why I warn people. That's why I tell people, you ain't got to make all the bad choices. You can learn from the Bible. You can learn from others. That you ain't got to make them all. Save yourself some pain. I mean, there's choices in this life and in this world. If you make them, you're always gonna be suffering in this world. I see people all the time when I go to jails and prisons that they're sitting in there from one choice, a quick response to something, and now your life is ruined. You might get out of jail, you might not. And even if you do, it's going to be hanging over you. Verse 24, then David came to Mahanaim, and Absalom passed over Jordan. So Absalom is following Hushai's advice. He's pursuing his father. It's hard to believe all that time and how much David loved Absalom, but it seems that Absalom had no love for him. Ain't that hard to believe? That you could raise a child, risk your life for that child, and that child not love you? That's a hard truth. And David came to Mahanaim, and Absalom passed over Jordan, and he and all the men of Israel with him. So he had all these men with him, and Absalom made Amasa captain of the host instead of Joab. Now, Joab was David's military leader. Now, listen who Amasa was. Which Amasa was a man's son whose name was Ithra, an Israelite, that went in to Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister to Zeruiah, Joab's mother. Now, all that's a lot to say. But I did some study on this. Amasa's father was an Ishmaelite. He was an Ishmaelite. You know where the Ishmaelites come from, okay? By birth, he was an Ishmaelite. That's Amasa. But he was an Israelite by religion. He was an Ishmaelite by birth, but an Israelite by religion. Guess what else complicates this? He was David's nephew. He was King David's nephew, and he was the first cousin of Joab, who he's replacing. This is complicated. See all this stuff going on in Israel? You know, trying to remove a king, a son chasing a father, trying to take his place, to dethrone him. And these people are kin to each other. Some of them not even Israelites by birth, you know. They fall into religion. But you know that's what some people's doing is following religion. They have no heart. They got no heart in what they're doing. They're not born of God. They're not real. They just following religion. You can follow religion for your parents. You can follow religion for your wife or your husband. You can follow religion for lots of reasons, but that won't get you to heaven. You got to be born again. So Israel, verse 26, and Absalom pitched in the land of Gilead. So they're there together. And it came to pass, when David was come to Mahanaim, that Shobai the son of Nahash of Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and Machir the son of Amiel of Lodebar, and Barzillai the Gileadite of Rogelim. Now look what these three did. If you study this, I hadn't got time today to go into this in the depth that we could, but these three people showed kindness to David. They showed kindness to God's anointed, okay? In a time of trial. They're going to be remembered for this. Look what they did, though. They brought now these people's on the run. David and his people are on the run from Absalom. They brought beds, basins, earthen vessels, and wheat, and barley, and flour, and parched corn, and beans, and lentils, and parched pulse, and honey, and butter, and sheep, and cheese of kine for David, and for the people that were with him to eat. For they said, the people is hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. You know what Jesus said, if you do it to the least of these? He said, if you give as much as a cup of water in my name. See, this is the man who Christ is going to eventually come from, his lineage. The promise that God made to David, that no matter what he did, there would always somebody sit upon the throne. Even if his children denied Christ, denied God, God was still going to bring it to pass. He said, I'll judge them with the rods of men, but my spirit basically will never depart from them. And he was speaking of Jesus Christ. Okay, so we better be glad that this plan of salvation is based on God's promise, not man's. Because if it had been based on man's, it would have failed. That's why it hadn't failed. That's supernatural. Don't mean he ain't going to judge them, no. He did judge them. You know what I mean? Some of these people, they were really bad, what they did. But God's plan is still going to come to pass. Me and you can't stop God's plan, no other person. You can only stop God's plan for your life. You can't stop God's ultimate plan. If you decide to walk away from God's will, then you'll suffer for that. You may eventually suffer in torment. But you'll suffer, or you may suffer here, you may suffer in both. But you will suffer. We're going to chapter 18 now. And David numbered the people that were with him, and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. And David sent forth a third part of the people under the hand of Joab, and a third part under the hand of Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and a third part of the hand of, under the hand of Ittai the Gittite. And the king said unto the people, I will surely go forth with you myself also. So David said, I'm going to go with you too. I'm going to go forth. But the people answered. So he was wanting to go to battle. David was wanting to go to battle with them to help them. But the people answered, verse 3, thou shalt not go forth, for if we flee away, they knew he was the anointed of God. Okay. They will not care for us, neither if half of us die, will they care for us. But now thou art worth 10,000 of us. Therefore now it is better that thou succor us out of the city. That word succor is an interesting word. He says better that thou succor us. That word succor means provide aid. It means to help, to assist, and primarily from difficulty, want, or distress. They knew that David needed to be there, not with them, but probably inquiring of the Lord, what they thinking. They knew he was in touch with God. Verse 4, and the king said unto them, what seemest thou best, I will do. So David yielded here. David yielded to their will, even though he wanted to go in his heart, because he was a warrior. You know, even God said, thou art a man of war. He was. Do you know the Lord is a man of war? A lot of people don't like to think about that. He is. He's a God of, you know, you can be a lot of God of love and a God of war. Do you know that? What the Bible says. Well, the king said unto him, What seemest thou best, I will do. And the king stood by the gate side, and all the people came out by hundreds and by thousands. So he had a lot of people with him. And the king commanded Joab and Abishai and Ittai, saying, now to get this right here, this is important. Deal gently for my sake with the young man, even with Absalom. David tells his military leaders to deal gently with Absalom. What do you reckon that means? Don't kill him. Certainly means don't kill him. Even though he's trying to kill David. He's trying to take David's head off. He's against the will of God, Absalom is. But David says deal gently with him. But you got to understand God's will is in this too, though. And it seems, we're going to see here that David is thinking in the flesh. Doing like we would probably do for our own loved ones, our own children. Even if they're wrong. You know you might love your child even if it's wrong. And you know that love could blind you if you don't love God more. That's what you're fixing to see here. See, David wants to give him grace, more grace. But what do you know? It's the truth that's going, God's truth's going to prevail in this. So where did I stop? So the people went out into the field against Israel, and the battle was in the wood of Ephraim. So they're fighting in the woods, where the people of Israel were slain before the servants of David. So David looks like, even though he's a smaller group, he's winning this battle in the woods. You reckon why that is? He gets run off from his kingdom by his son and all them others that conspired with his son. And here he's out in the woods. They pursuing after him to kill David and make Absalom king. They already basically made him king, but God ain't made him king. That's the difference. It don't matter how many people's against you if God's with you. That's what we got to understand. God will never be a minority. He's always the majority, singular. The whole world fights against him. It wouldn't matter. And the whole world is going to fight against him over in that valley of Megiddo coming. The whole world's going to come against him. You know why the whole world's going to come against him? For the same reason what we read today. They will not submit to his will. That's the reason. It's coming. So this is a picture of it right here. So where the people of Israel were slain before the servants of David, and there was a great slaughter that day of 20,000 men. That's a lot of men. For the battle was there scattered over the face of all the country, and the wood devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. What do you reckon that mean? We'll talk about that in a minute. The wood. They running into things. You're going to see here in a minute. These woods here must have been some serious woods. I've seen some serious woods in my life, and most of the woods there are cut down, but I can't imagine how the woods would have looked in some places in the world years ago before they did all this cutting. So it's saying the woods, so apparently in their fighting, God is allowing these people to wood. They're running into the woods or getting hung up in the woods, whatever, and they're dying. We're going to see more about this now. Verse 9, and Absalom met the servants of David. So Absalom's meeting people that is loyal to the real king. And Absalom rode upon a mule. And I'm wondering why the king, or even an imposter king, why would he be riding a mule in a battle? That ain't too smart. And the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught hold of the oak. And he was taken up between the heaven and the earth. And the mule that was under him went away. So here's Absalom fighting David's men, his mighty men, and he gets caught up in these woods that we talking about, in the bough of an oak tree. Now, if you know what we've been studying about Absalom, what was something about Absalom? Remember, he was goodly. It wasn't a blemish in him. What else was it? He had long hair, beautiful hair, they said. So he's caught up in this tree. And Joab and a certain man saw it and told Joab and said, behold, I saw Absalom hanged in a oak. So Joab is the military leader for David. And Joab said unto the man that told him, and behold, thou sawest him, and why didst thou not smite him there to the ground? So we see right here that Joab is not listening to what David said. Remember I said a week or two ago, Joab's an interesting character. Sometimes, boy, he looks like he's really following God. He's really with David. He's supporting David. And now he's going against what David is saying. Sometimes it seems like he hears from God, and sometimes it seems like he's going against what David's saying. We're going to see David make a few bad choices. He's already made some. He's going to make some more in the future, where God wasn't telling him to do what he was doing. He's asking them, why didn't y'all smite him to the ground? And I would have given thee 10 shekels of silver and a girdle if you'd have killed him. And the man said unto Joab, though I should receive, this is a man telling Joab, this is the guy he's talking to. He said, though I should receive 1,000 shekels of silver in mine hand, yet would I not put forth mine hand against the king's son. This guy so feared David, he said, hey, I don't care how much you're giving me. I ain't killing the king's son. You know why he told him that, told Joab that? Guess who David would have probably told to go kill this man? Joab. He said, I ain't doing this, for in our hearing the king charged thee and Abishai and Ittai, saying, beware that none touch the young man Absalom. So they had been told to deal with him gently. Otherwise, I should have wrought falsehood against mine own life. He said, I know I'm going to die if I do this. For there is no matter hid from the king. Now, how could no matter be hid from him? That right there lets you know he's the anointed of God. Remember, it's God's eyes run to and fro the earth, beholding the good and the evil. He knows David's in touch with God. David's going to have discernment. Who's telling the truth, what's going on. So he knew that. This must have been a God-fearing man, huh? For there is no matter hid from the king, and thou thyself would have set thyself against me. He's telling him to his face, said, you would have been against me if I'd have done what you even said. Then said Joab, I may not tarry thus with thee. He said, I can't talk to you no longer. And he took 3 darts in his hand and thrust them through the heart of Absalom. So Joab put the darts in him himself. And look what else he did. While he was yet alive in the midst of the oak. So Joab throws these 3 darts through him, and he's still alive. And 10 young men that bare Joab's armor compassed about and smote Absalom. So they finna finish him off and slew him. And Joab blew the trumpet. And the people returned from pursuing after Israel, for Joab held back the people. And they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit in the wood, and laid a very great heap of stones upon him, and all Israel fled, every one to his tent. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's dale. For he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the pillar after his own name, and is called unto this day Absalom's place. So what did Absalom do? It says here, because he had no son, well, he had 3 sons. He had 3 sons and a daughter. Turn back to, let's see here. Said he had no son. See where I'm at. Okay, turn back to 2 Samuel 14:27. 2 Samuel 14:27 says, and unto Absalom there were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of a fair countenance. So it says in here, though, in 2 Samuel 18, I have no son. A lot of people believe that his sons were dead for some reason. That's what a lot of people think. But here's Absalom. That's the kind of fellow he was. He's rearing up something, building something, so he can be remembered. He's going to be remembered. Bible says, let another man praise thee and not thine own lips, a stranger. Amen. So he's praising himself. He's building stuff so he can be remembered. Verse 19, then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, let me now run and bear the king tidings, how that the Lord hath avenged him of his enemies. So these people are wanting to run to King David and tell him what's happened. So they had these runs saying, there's more than one of them. And Joab said unto him, thou shalt not bear tidings this day, but thou shalt bear tidings another day. Thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. Then said Joab to Cushah, go tell the king what thou hast seen. And Cushah bowed himself unto Joab and ran. Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, yet again to Joab. So the first runner that wanted to go, if we read this, you're going to see this guy always usually brought good tidings. So Joab said, you can't go today. He's going to let this other runner go do it. But then Ahimaaz, after he lets the other runner go, he asked Joab again. That's what we're dealing with in verse 22. Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, yet again to Joab, but howsoever let me, I pray thee, also run after Cushah. And Joab said, wherefore wilt thou run, my son, seeing that thou hast no tidings ready? 23, but howsoever, said he, let me run. And he said unto him, run. So now you got two of them running to David. Tell him what's happened. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and overran Cushah. So the second runner outrun the first runner. And David sat between two gates. You know what always happened at the gates? Where decisions were made, messages were brought that were important. Setting of the gates. And David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof. So they had people waiting for word. They knew they was at battle. To the roof over the gate under the wall, and lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man running alone. 25. And the watchman cried and told the king, and the king says, if he be alone, there is tidings in his mouth. And he came apace and drew near, and the watchman saw another man running. And the watchman called unto the porter, and said, behold, another man running alone. And the king said, he also bringeth tidings. And the watchman said, me thinketh the running of the foremost is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, he is a good man, and cometh with good tidings. That's why Joab didn't want him to go first. He usually brings good tidings. He knew what David was going to think. He run the other one, the second one. And Ahimaaz called and said unto the king, all is well. And he fell down to the earth upon his face before the king, and said, blessed be the Lord thy God, which hath delivered up the men that lifted up their hand against my lord the king. And the king said, is the young man Absalom safe? And Ahimaaz answered, when Joab sent the king's servants and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I knew not what it was. He didn't have the heart to tell him, because he's the man that normally brings good tidings. You know, there's some people won't hardly tell you the truth. You ever notice people, they always have something good to say, even if it needs to be, it may not be the truth, they just, don't want to say, though it's hard. And the king said unto him, turn aside and stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. And behold, Cushah came. And Cushah said, now he was the one that was sent first, but the other guy passed him up. He said, behold, and Cushah came, and Cushah said, tidings, my lord, the king, for the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushah, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushah answered, The enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. He knew then. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And as he went, thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son, Absalom, I would God I had died for thee. O Absalom, my son, my son. There's some things we need to understand here today. We're going to see a lot next week. Joab's going to confront him over this to some degree. It seems that Absalom was really proud of the way he looked. See, that was he was prideful, and it's this pride that brought him down. He's hung up in a tree, a freak thing kind of. Pride will bring you low. May take a while. Something else we need to notice here, it seems that King David had consistently refused to punish his sons. Amnon deserved death, and Absalom took care of it. So why didn't he punish them? They both was worthy of death. He had raped his sister, you know. But I think that David felt guilty for his own past. You see? So some people say it was crimes. Well, it was sins. So if we don't do, now get this right, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, God may put somebody else in there to do it. That's right. So the task fell to Joab. Yeah. Now Joab is going to die too, though. Joab keeps doing things that are questionable, even though sometimes it looks like it's God's will. And I don't know how to explain this no different than what I'm saying today. I can only say this, we don't see some of these things that are going on where God's condemning it. He's allowing it. And I believe he's allowing it because it's sin. Sin puts things into motion that ain't the perfect will of God. They will get into his permissive will. He will allow it, okay? But let's understand, God's will is going to come to pass, okay? How will it play out? This is true in all areas of life. So the task failed to someone else. Absalom deserved to be put to death. And we know what the wages of sin are, as I've already said. Something else about Absalom. Absalom sowed to the flesh. If you sow to the flesh, what does Galatians say you reap? Corruption. What he's reaping. If you sow to the Spirit, you reap life everlasting. Absalom wasn't sowing to the Spirit, though. Nothing he was doing was spiritual. He was against God's will to ultimately bring Christ into the world through the promise to David, to Abraham, to David. Are we seeing the picture here? In Matthew 26, something else I want to bring out, that these three people that I mentioned, Barzillai being one of them, in Matthew 26, we see a promise here, I think is a parallel for people that sacrifice something. Matthew 26, 52. Then said Jesus unto him, no, that ain't the one I'm wanting. Maybe it is. Let's see, Matthew 26. I'm looking for the passage where where the Lord told them that no man left houses or brethren. And he says, for my sake and for the gospel's, that he'll have more in this life and in the life to come. So these people sacrificed for the will of God, and they're gonna be rewarded. So when David dies, there's a couple things we'll just go ahead and mention. When David dies, right before he dies, he's gonna basically tell Solomon to put Joab to death. Okay? Eventually, Joab is going to try to come against David. Okay? He's also going to tell him to bless Barzillai's children. So a lot of things, just because they ain't happened then and even to now today, a lot of people, that's like all these people today is coming against Israel. Okay? Even though we know what prophecy says about Israel. Everything Israel's done ain't never been right, okay? Since very early, since they became a nation. They're always messing up, making bad choices, going in sin, getting put into captivity. But guess what's always the theme of the story? God's plan, God's will. Keeps bringing them back, keeps bringing them back. He ain't through with them yet, okay? So a lot of people, just because things ain't going right today, say God ain't going to use Israel no more. Okay, yeah, Christ is, we done got the plan of salvation through Christ. But all prophecy ain't been fulfilled, though. And this prophecy is fitting to come to pass. Whether you like it or I like it, or whether anybody likes it, God's will is going to come to pass. God ain't through with that land over there in Israel. He ain't through with Jerusalem. He ain't through with the Mount of Olives. He got a war got to be fought. Lots of prophecies have not been fulfilled. Christ is coming back. And if you against these prophecies, then your Bible doctrine is going to be messed up. Ain't no way around it. It's going to be messed up. I mean, it's just clear. And that's what we see in here. These people did not, all the way back to Saul, they did not want to get with God's plan. Saul would not accept what God said about him. You ain't king no more. I'm through talking to you. He would not accept it. So you know what happened with him. Now they're against David. David is God's anointed. You know what? They even went against God's will, Israel did, when they wanted a king. God didn't even want them to have a king, period. He was their king. So, you know, we see all this in Israel, but here's the question today. Do we see our own rebellion? Can you see where you've rebelled in the past? I can see where I've rebelled in the past. Maybe something little, maybe nothing this serious, but you know, this is the test for us, every one of us as believers, that when we see we in error or wrong, we do repent. Because I doubt you're going to be right on everything in this book, but the main thing to be right is on Jesus Christ. Because you're wrong on some of this other stuff, you'll still make it into the kingdom, right? But there are some fatal sins, okay? There are sins that lead not unto death. There is a sin unto death, though. That's the unpardonable sin, that sin unto death. That's the rejection of Jesus Christ and his will. Okay? Sin unto death. That's the second death. So I pray this will be a blessing to you today.